Right now, your mind is controlling you, shaping your thoughts, filtering what you see, and deciding what you believe. And the scariest part, you don't even notice it. It's been running the same patterns for years, keeping you stuck in the same emotions, the same habits, the same illusions. Not by accident, but by design. But here's the question. What happens when you finally see through it? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll realize just how much your mind has been hiding from you. Let's begin. 1. The mind's greatest trick. The illusion you don't see. Your mind is lying to you. And the scariest part? You don't even realize it. Right now you believe that the way you think, the way you perceive the world, and the way you react to life is just how things are. But what if I told you that most of your thoughts aren't even your own? Your mind has been programmed, conditioned, shaped in ways you never questioned. And here's the shocking part. It isn't showing you reality as it is. It's showing you a version of reality that fits within the patterns and beliefs it has already accepted. Think about this. How often do you stop and question your thoughts? How often do you step back and ask, wait, why do I think this way? Where did this belief even come from? Most people never do. Because your mind doesn't want you to. It creates mental shortcuts, automatic responses, and invisible rules that keep you locked inside an illusion. And the worst part? You don't even know it's happening. You believe you're making decisions, but your brain is just running pre-programmed patterns. You think you're seeing the world clearly, but your mind is filtering out everything that doesn't align with what it already believes. This is why two people can look at the exact same situation and experience it completely differently. One person sees failure, another sees opportunity. One sees rejection, another sees freedom. One sees a problem, another sees potential. It's not the world that's different, it's the mind that's interpreting it. And until you understand how your mind is tricking you, you will remain stuck in an invisible prison, one that you've been living in your entire life without even knowing it. 2. The invisible filter. Why you never see reality as it is. Imagine waking up in a house where every window has been painted over. You've lived there your whole life, never knowing what the world outside actually looks like. Now imagine someone telling you, hey, there's a whole world out there. At first you wouldn't believe them. How could you? All you've ever known is the walls around you. This is exactly what your mind does to you. From the moment you were born, your brain started constructing a mental filter. It decides what you notice, what you ignore, and what you believe to be true. But here's the thing. You didn't create this filter. It was shaped by your past experiences, by what people told you, by what you feared, by what society convinced you was normal. Your mind is not giving you an accurate picture of reality. It's giving you a version of reality that matches the patterns it has already accepted. This is why beliefs are so powerful. If your mind has been conditioned to believe something, it will actively ignore anything that contradicts it. Ever notice how when someone strongly believes something, no amount of evidence can change their mind? That's because their mental filter is rejecting anything that doesn't fit. And here's where it gets dangerous. Your brain is doing this to you right now. You think you're making choices, but your brain is filtering out options before you even see them. You think you're open-minded, but your mind is rejecting new perspectives before you even consider them. And unless you become conscious of this filter, you will go your entire life seeing the world not as it is, but as your mind wants it to be. 3. The mind's autopilot system, the illusion of control. Most people think they are in control of their minds, that they are actively deciding what to think, how to react, and what to believe. But the truth is, your mind is running on autopilot. Studies show that up to 95% of your daily thoughts and decisions are unconscious habits. That means most of what you do, think, and feel every day isn't a conscious choice. It's just your mind repeating patterns. Your brain prefers patterns because they require less energy. If you reacted to every situation as if it were new, your brain would have to work way harder. So instead, it creates shortcuts. These shortcuts turn into automatic habits, unconscious beliefs, and emotional triggers. Ever notice how certain things always frustrate you? Why you react the same way to the same situations over and over again? That's because your mind has created pre-programmed emotional responses. And once these patterns are set, your mind keeps repeating them, whether they serve you or not. This is why people struggle to change. It's not because they don't want to, it's because their mind is keeping them stuck in familiar loops. Think about it. How many times have you tried to break a habit, only to fall right back into it? How many times have you tried to think more positively, only to be pulled back into the same negative cycles? That's not a lack of willpower. That's your mind's autopilot system at work. And until you learn how to override it, you will keep running the same script over and over again, thinking you're making choices when in reality, you're just following a mental program. 4. The false sense of identity, how your mind traps you. You believe you know who you are. But what if I told you? You don't. From the moment you were born, you were given an identity, a name, a culture, a role to play. And over time, your mind built a story around it. You started identifying with your personality, your beliefs, your past experiences. But here's the shocking truth. None of those things are actually you. They are just thoughts. And thoughts change. Think about it. Who you were 10 years ago is not who you are today. Your interests, your opinions, your desires, they've all shifted. So if your identity keeps changing, then how can it be real? Your mind has tricked you into believing that you are a fixed person. But the real you isn't a personality, it's the awareness behind it. And the moment you detach from the false identity, you start to see the world differently. Because once you realize you were never the character in your mind's story, you become free. 5. Breaking the illusion, how to escape the mind's control. So how do you break free? The first step, realize that your mind is not you. Every time you have a thought, instead of getting lost in it, ask yourself, who is observing this thought? The second step, interrupt the autopilot. When you catch yourself falling into old patterns, pause. Do something unexpected. Challenge the routine. That's how you break the cycle. The third step, question everything. Every belief, every assumption, every reaction. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Or is it just something I've been conditioned to believe? And finally, return to awareness. Because the real you isn't a thought. It isn't a belief. It's the awareness watching it all unfold. And once you realize that, your mind will never trick you again. 6. The power of emotional triggers, how your mind controls you without you noticing. Have you ever felt an intense emotional reaction to something and then wondered, why did that affect me so much? Maybe it was a comment from someone, a certain situation, or even just a passing thought. Suddenly, you felt anger, shame, fear, or anxiety, almost as if the reaction was automatic, beyond your control. That's because it was automatic. Your mind has spent years creating emotional shortcuts, pre-programmed reactions to certain situations. And the scariest part? These triggers are controlling your thoughts and actions without you even realizing it. Here's how it works. If something in your past made you feel small, embarrassed, or ashamed, your brain locks onto that experience. It marks it as something to avoid, something dangerous. Then, when a similar situation arises in the future, even if it's completely different, your brain activates the same emotional response. It's like a button that keeps getting pushed. You feel insecure when someone doesn't respond the way you expected. You feel defensive when someone disagrees with you. You feel anxious when you think about stepping outside your comfort zone. But here's what most people never realize. These emotional triggers are not reality. They are just mental patterns. And the moment you step back and observe them instead of reacting, the spell breaks. The next time you feel a strong emotional reaction, don't act on it immediately. Instead, pause and ask yourself, is this reaction actually about this moment? Or is it just an old trigger replaying itself? Because once you learn to watch the trigger instead of being controlled by it, you take back your power. 7. The comfort trap. How your mind tricks you into staying stuck. Your mind has one mission: to keep you safe. But to your brain, safe doesn't mean happy. It means familiar. And this is where most people get trapped. They stay in situations that make them miserable. They hold on to limiting beliefs. They avoid new experiences. And when asked why, they'll say things like, "I just don't feel ready." "What if something goes wrong?" "I don't want to fail." But here's the truth. These are just mental defense mechanisms. Your brain doesn't care if you grow. It doesn't care if you evolve. It only cares about keeping things predictable. Because predictability feels safe, even when it's keeping you stuck. This is why so many people never change. Why they stay in jobs they hate. Why they stay in toxic relationships. Why they never take risks, even when they want something better. Their mind is running a program. Stick to what you know. It's safer here. But what if you stopped listening to that voice? What if, instead of avoiding discomfort, you leaned into it? What if, instead of waiting to feel ready, you realized that the feeling of readiness never comes? Growth will always feel uncomfortable at first. But discomfort is not danger. And once you realize that, your mind's ability to keep you stuck disappears. 8. The mind's fear of the present. Why it keeps you stuck in the past or future. Have you ever noticed how your mind is almost never fully in the present moment? Instead, it's always pulling you into the past, replaying mistakes, regrets, old memories. Or it's throwing you into the future, worrying, planning, anticipating what's next. But here's something that might shock you. Your mind does this on purpose. Because the present moment is the one place where your mind has no control. Think about it. When you are fully present, when you are not lost in thought, not analyzing the past or worrying about the future, what happens? The mind goes silent. And for the mind, silence is a threat. Because in the silence, you start to wake up. You start to see that the voice in your head is not you. You start to notice that most of your thoughts are repetitive, meaningless, and unnecessary. You realize that without constant mental noise, your mind loses its grip on you. And that's why it constantly pulls you away from the now, because the now is where its illusion starts to crumble. But here's the secret. The more time you spend in the present, the weaker the mind's hold on you becomes. So the next time you catch yourself lost in thought, bring your attention back to now. Feel the air on your skin. Listen to the sounds around you. Focus on your breath. Because in that moment, your mind loses its power over you. 9. The final trick. Your mind will convince you that this doesn't apply to you. Right now, your mind might be telling you something like, "Yeah, this is interesting, but I already know this. I'm not really trapped in my mind. Other people might be, but not me. This doesn't really apply to my situation." That's the final trick. Your mind's greatest defense mechanism is to convince you that you are already awake, that you already see clearly, that none of this is keeping you stuck. Because if it can make you believe that, you will never challenge it. And as long as you don't challenge it, you stay inside the illusion. So ask yourself right now, is that voice in your head really you? Or is it just the mind defending itself? Because real self-awareness isn't about knowing. It's about seeing the illusion in real time and refusing to fall for it anymore. And once you stop falling for the mind's tricks, you take back control. 10. Waking up. What happens when you finally see the truth? Once you see through the tricks, your mind loses control over you. You stop reacting. You stop overthinking. You stop getting lost in thoughts that don't serve you. And for the first time, you experience real freedom. Not the illusion of freedom where you think you're making choices but are actually following pre-programmed responses, but the kind of freedom where you see the illusion for what it is, where thoughts appear but they don't control you, where emotions rise but they don't define you, where the mind tries to trick you but you see through it immediately. And once you reach that point, your mind will never be able to trick you again. 11. The hidden program. How your mind creates your reality without you noticing. There's something your mind does every single day that shapes your entire life, yet you probably never notice it. It's called confirmation bias, the tendency to look for information that supports what you already believe, while ignoring anything that contradicts it. And here's why this is terrifying. Your entire perception of reality is built on this bias. If you believe that people can't be trusted, your mind will constantly notice situations that prove it's true, reinforcing that belief. If you believe that you're unlucky, your brain will highlight every bad thing that happens while completely ignoring the good. If you believe you're not good enough, your mind will selectively remember every failure and overlook your successes. And over time, this solidifies your reality, not because it's actually true, but because your mind has been programmed to look for evidence that supports it. And the worst part? You don't even realize this is happening. You think your beliefs are based on experience, but in reality, your experience is shaped by your beliefs. So how do you break out of this mental programming? Step 1. Become aware of it. Step 2. Question everything, every belief, every assumption. Ask yourself, what if this isn't actually true? What if I've just trained my mind to believe it? Step 3. Shift your focus. Instead of looking for evidence that supports your limitations, start training your mind to notice new possibilities. Because the moment you take control of what your brain focuses on, you take control of your reality. Because the moment you take control of what your brain focuses on, you take control of your reality. And when that happens, the illusion breaks. If this video opened your eyes in any way, let me know by tapping that like button. And if you're ready to go even deeper, click the video on your screen right now. It's the perfect next step. I'll see you there.